Around the World Lit Audio. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Chapter 2. Full narration script. Channel intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest novels ever written, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week, free to listen. Chapter recap. In Chapter 1, a young Spanish shepherd boy named Santiago slept in a ruined church with his flock and dreamed, for what felt like the 100th time, of a child who led him to the Egyptian pyramids, and pointed at a treasure hidden at their base. In the morning he led his sheep into the town of Tarifa, where he had hoped to see a merchant's daughter he had been thinking about all year. Instead, an old man sat beside him, on a bench in the town square and said, "I know you have been having a recurring dream." His name was Melchizedek. He said he was the king of Salem. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Santiago looked at the old man for a long time. He was not sure what to make of him. The man was old and well-dressed, and sat with the particular ease of someone who has never been uncomfortable anywhere, and he had just claimed to be a king, and he knew about the dream. And Santiago was 20 years old and had been a shepherd for 2 years and had read enough books to know that kings did not generally sit on benches in the squares of small Andalusian towns. He said, "If you are a king, where is your kingdom?" The old man smiled. He said, "In your heart, mostly, as all the best kingdoms are." This was not the answer Santiago had expected. He waited for a more satisfying one. The old man seemed in no hurry to provide it. He sat with the pleasant patience of someone who has all the time in the world, which, Santiago would later understand, was precisely the case. The old man said, "Tell me about your dream." So Santiago told him. He told him about the ruined church, and the sycamore tree and the child, who appeared and played with the sheep and took his hand, and transported him to Egypt, to the pyramids, and pointed at the ground at the base of them and said, "Here is a treasure." He told him about the way the dream always ended before the child could specify exactly where the treasure was. The old man listened without interrupting. When Santiago finished, the old man was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The dream is speaking to you in the language of the world. You should listen to it." Santiago said, "I have been having it for a long time. I am not sure I believe it means anything." The old man looked at him, with the expression of a man who finds a particular kind of gentle exasperation appropriate. He said, "That is because you have not yet understood what your personal legend is." Santiago asked, "What is a personal legend?" The old man said, "It is what you have always wanted to accomplish." Everyone, when they are young, knows what their personal legend is. At that point in their life, everything is clear and everything is possible. They are not afraid to dream, and to yearn for everything they would like to see happen to them in their lives. But as time passes, a mysterious force begins to convince them that it will be impossible for them to realize their personal legend. Santiago thought about this. He thought about his father, who had wanted him to become a priest. He thought about how he had chosen shepherding instead, chosen it precisely because it would let him see the world. He thought about the merchant's daughter in Tarifa, whom he had planned his whole season around, and who he had not yet gone to see, because he was sitting here on a bench talking to an old man, who claimed to be a king. He thought, "I have been following my personal legend, in my own way. I chose the sheep. I chose the road." He said this to the old man. The old man nodded. He said, "Yes. And now your personal legend is calling you further. To the pyramids. To the treasure." Santiago said, "The treasure might not be real." The old man said, "Everything that happens once can never happen again. But everything that happens twice will surely happen a third time. You have dreamed this dream twice. This means something." He reached into his white garment and produced 2 stones, one black, one white. He held them out to Santiago. He said, "These are called Urim and Thummim. The black one means yes. The white one means no. When you cannot find an answer in yourself, ask them. But try to make your own decisions first. These are for the moments when the answer truly escapes you." Santiago took the stones. They were smooth and warm in his palm. He said, "I still have not decided whether to go." The old man stood. He was taller than he appeared sitting down, tall and straight, with the quality of someone who has never once been stooped by anything. He said, "I can only show you the door. You have to decide whether to walk through it." He began to walk away across the square. Santiago called after him, "You said you were a king. If you are a king, why do you talk to a shepherd?" The old man stopped. He looked back over his shoulder. He said, "Because when someone is in pursuit of their personal legend, the whole universe conspires to help them achieve it. I am part of that conspiracy." He walked on. He turned a corner. He was gone. Santiago sat on the bench in the square of Tarifa, with 2 smooth stones in his hand, and a dream in his mind, and a decision in front of him that was, depending on how you looked at it, either very simple or entirely impossible. He thought about his flock. He had spent 2 years building it, starting with 6 sheep, adding to it, slowly, learning the animals, learning the land they grazed on, learning the rhythms of the seasons and the roads. The flock was real. The flock fed him. The flock was the concrete, present result of 2 years of actual work. The treasure at the base of the Egyptian pyramids was a dream, literally, a dream that a child had pointed at in the image language of sleep. These were not comparable things. He went to find the merchant's daughter. She was in her father's crystal shop, as he had imagined her. She was dark-haired and direct, and she smiled at him when he came in, which was as good as he had remembered. They talked. He had planned, during the winter months of imagining this meeting, approximately 100 different conversations. None of them had gone quite the way he had imagined. This one did not either. He found, to his surprise, that he could not stop thinking about the pyramids. Not in a romantic or adventurous way, in the specific, practical way of a mind that has been given a problem and cannot set it down. He kept thinking about what the old man had said, that when someone is in pursuit of their personal legend, the universe conspires to help them. He kept thinking about the 2 stones in his pocket, warm against his leg. He kept thinking about the treasure. He left the crystal shop earlier than he had intended. He walked back through the streets of Tarifa to where his sheep were tied, and he stood among them for a while, among their smell and their warmth, and their familiar indifference, and he thought about his life, about what he had, about what he was being offered, about the distance between the two. The sheep were looking at him, with their usual blankness. They had no opinions about Egypt. They had no opinions about personal legends. They were sheep, and they wanted grass and water and to be moved from place to place, and in return they gave wool and occasionally meat, and this was the transaction that had defined the last 2 years of Santiago's life. He thought, I love these animals. They have been good to me, but they do not know me. They follow me because I feed them. If someone else fed them tomorrow, they would follow that person instead. There is nothing in their following that has anything to do with who I am. He thought about the merchant's daughter. He had been planning this visit all year. He had arrived. She had smiled. She was lovely. And he could not remember, now, what she had said to him, because he had been thinking about the pyramids. He sold the sheep that afternoon. He did not plan to. He had not woken up that morning intending to sell his flock and redirect his life toward Egypt. But the old man had said something about the universe conspiring, and perhaps this was what conspiracy felt like from the inside. Not a dramatic decision, not a heroic moment, but a quiet afternoon in which you do the thing you are going to do because you have already decided, without quite knowing when, that you are going to do it. He got a fair price, not a generous one. The buyer knew a motivated seller, when he saw one, but fair. He counted the money. It was enough to get to Africa. Barely. He stood in the street of Tarifa with his money, and his 2 smooth stones and none of his sheep, and he felt something that was not quite fear, and not quite excitement, but contained elements of both. The feeling of a person who has stepped off a ledge, and has not yet determined whether they are falling or flying. He thought, I am going to Egypt. Then he thought, I have no idea how to get to Egypt. He walked toward the port. In the port there were boats. There were also, inevitably, people who knew things about boats, men who worked on the water, who understood routes and distances and the specific geography of moving between Spain and Africa and the world beyond. He found one of these men and asked him about crossing to Africa. The man told him it was simple. You take the ferry to Tangier. From Tangier you find your way south and east. Eventually, if you keep going, you reach Egypt. Santiago thanked him. He stood at the edge of the port and looked at the water. Across the Strait of Gibraltar, the coast of Africa was clearly visible, brown hills, a smear of buildings, a different world that was actually very close. The distance was not the distance of geography. It was the distance of the self, the gap between who you have been and who you are deciding to become. He bought a ticket for the ferry. He sat on a bench near the dock and waited for the departure, and looked at the town of Tarifa, at its white walls and its narrow streets, and the crystal shop somewhere in it where a merchant's daughter had smiled at him this morning. And he felt the particular clarity that comes when a decision has been made, and the making of it is behind you. He was going. He did not know what he would find. He did not know what the treasure was or whether it was real. He did not know how long it would take, or what it would cost, or whether he was right, or wrong, or brave, or foolish. He knew only that the dream had been trying to tell him something for a long time, and that today, for the first time, he had decided to listen. The ferry horn sounded. He picked up his jacket, and his small bag and his 2 smooth stones, and walked toward the water. Chapter Transition. You have reached the end of Chapter 2 of The Alchemist, by Paulo Coelho. In Chapter 3, Santiago arrives in Tangier, and immediately loses everything. His money is stolen by a young man he trusted. He is alone in a foreign city, where he does not speak the language, with nothing left but his jacket, his stones, and a decision he cannot take back. This is where the journey truly begins. Chapter 3 is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new chapter arrives every week.